Hello and welcome to Check 1 2, where we give you the lowdown on testicular cancer by talking to survivors, advocates, and supporters here at the world famous podcast studio Glasgow. In today's episode, we're talking to MMA fighter Aaron Abys. We were able to kind of talk to Aaron about his remarkable story, not just within his testicular cancer story, but the fact that he was able to overcome the odds while being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis as from childhood. So the passion and the mindset that Aaron shows throughout this is certainly going to be a beacon of hope for a lot of our listeners and watchers out there. So please join us as we explore his journey of courage, determination, and the power of never giving up. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Abys. But let's say I can't thank you enough. So that's us rolling, buddy. So thank you, Aaron, so much for coming on Check 1 2. It'd just be great if you could kind of give our listeners just a little kind of rundown of your kind of experience and, you know, your testicular cancer, your kind of health in general, and what you do for a living.
So I was born with cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic inherited disease, and I played like football and everything growing up, and ended up getting released from the club I was at because of the cystic fibrosis, and I went into mixed martial arts, and then from there ended up turning professional, and then got a cancer diagnosis when I was 28 years old of testicular cancer. So that was a 2-year journey from going through that, really, and I've overcome that now, and I'm back competing and living the dream again.
Yeah, excellent. And it's such quite an incredible story you've got anyway, like, you know, like not like having that cystic fibrosis diagnosis and then still being able to turn professional as a mixed martial artist, but then having that testicular cancer battle and then getting through that and then being back, you know, at the top of your game, fighting again. You know, it's what can you describe just kind of like briefly like what your emotions were like when you had that testicular cancer diagnosis, because it was stage 3 you had, wasn't it?
Yeah, so with me, it was quite far, quite far gone, but emotions like change throughout it all. When I like think back of what I had to go through, pretty much at the start was like in denial, because like I was just told on the first I'd like went a couple of times and I got told I had like a water infection and a blood infection, like go and take these antibiotics and come back. And then I went to see another doctor like the third time, and he was like, "Oh, I'm 95% sure it's testicular cancer. Need to put you in for some scans." And I went for the scans and got told that they thought it was testicular cancer. So at the time, I was like, you know, a bit of in denial, because I was like, "Oh, surely not," as well, you know. I even went and booked my own scans privately as well, just to make sure and check. And then from there, and when you come to terms with it and you manage to tell everyone around you, it just become about like fighting it and ways to overcome it, and using like past life experiences to get me through what was ahead, really, and what I was going through at the time.
Yeah, because I mean, your mindset must have been, you probably had a pretty strong mindset anyway. Like you obviously kind of coming through your cystic fibrosis diagnosis as well. Did that shape any the kind of your approach to not only like your cancer diagnosis, but obviously like your mixed martial arts career as well? You know, like having that type of mindset, was that something that you were able to utilize when you were going through your kind of your cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, definitely. I always say like life teaches you like experiences that you're gonna go through, and fighting is teaching you experience. And you know, life and fighting are very similar in what you go through and the lessons that you're gonna learn through that. But I think sport in general as well, you're going to go through ups, downs, winning, losing, having to fight for things. And mixed martial arts is the closest thing that you're going to get to life, because I always say, life's tough. It's never going to be easy for anyone. We're all going to go through experience, and you just need to hope that you got the strength and the courage and the skills sometimes to get you through those moments of toughness, whether that's having just to fight through moments, having to, try and find a bit of hope and light when all around you in darkness, and just being able to keep fighting when you maybe don't know if there's going to be an end to it all. And I feel like, being born with cystic fibrosis and having to go through that from a young age, and the experiences I learned through that, as well as sport growing up as a kid, and got me through the cancer as well. I could pull on times and lessons I'd learned throughout my life to help get me through that.
It seems like it's quite a common through thread. I've spoke to different kind of guys for different jobs or walks of life, and especially but a lot of guys have always been involved in either team sport or contact sport, and it really does set a precedent for your mindset. I know for me, after I've done jiu-jitsu as well, and see, I've spoke about this on another podcast, but see when you're on, when you've got a 180-pound guy on top of you trying to strangle you for a full class, you kind of know how to kind of just go, no, it's all right. I know how to relax. I know how to kind of just make a positive out of something so negative, and it does seem to be quite a common through thread for especially testicular cancer guys. There's that positive mentality, but also this kind of mindset of, nah, I'm just going to get through it, and using all the tools in their toolbox to do that, which is, it's been quite, even though I've had it and I'm speaking to guys who have had it, it's actually been really inspiring, speaking to guys like yourself and the past guests, because it does show you, it's if you just have that right mindset, you can do anything really, eh?
Yeah, definitely, because that's what I mean. I feel like, when people talk about, oh, I'm trying to find happiness and stuff, I feel like, that doesn't really exist, because, that life's tough, and you're going to have to go through those moments of toughness, and, you learn lessons through sport, and you learn lessons through martial arts, and you learn lessons through life. And, I've learned so many, and I've had ups, I've had downs, I've had wins, I've had losses, I've had being told you're gonna die to being told you're okay. You're always at those different ends of the scales, and it's having that mindset to be able to push through it, and know that you've almost got to just find a way to get through things. And the more lessons you learn through life, the more adapt and able you are to cope with things that get thrown at you. I always remember growing up, and people would say, you're unlucky as the things you got, with cystic fibrosis and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, but they're my pack of cards. It's how I play them now. So it's just I think definitely something I can relate to and rely on. And even sometimes throughout the cancer journey, I'd managed to sneak some training sessions in, and when I was on the mat rolling and everything, I weren't thinking about what was going on outside of that. I was just thinking about, how am I going to roll with this guy who's on top of me, and I'm trying to strangle him, and he's trying to strangle me. So all those problems almost go away, and you can be in that moment for that time you're training and everything, which was also a good relief.
Yeah, and I suppose for you, having that physical fitness, that you were already kind of in great condition, do you think that helped? Do you think that helped you when you were going through your treatment and stuff like that, and obviously post surgery and things?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it helped with my recovery. You know, the chemotherapy was really tough for me, especially with the cystic fibrosis. My lung function and everything went down, but I had to have uh, operations, you know, and the last one was a major surgery, uh, which I was under anaesthetic for a long time, and I feel like, you know, my fitness beforehand helped get me out the other side and recover so quickly. I think I was like almost fortunate in that way. But I remember before the operation going in and knowing like I was going to be under anaesthetic, which isn't good for people with cystic fibrosis. I knew, you know, I needed the exercise, which I wasn't getting at the time, and I wouldn't be able to after as much. And I would like, sorry, my dog. I'd be
Love
like,
it.
I'm just going to, I'm going to go on the rower and try and get my lungs as fit as I can and before the operation, just to give me almost a better chance of recovering. Being like, what's in my control? What can I do to help? And you know, it's a big stress on the body having major surgery. So I feel like the fitness I had played a part in that, the nutrition and the mindset. Because when I grew up, even as a kid, you know, exercise wasn't recommended back then for people with cystic fibrosis because
Right.
they were saying it would be like bad for the lungs and the lungs wouldn't be able to cope with it. But you know that's changed now, and even in cystic fibrosis units in hospitals, they have gyms because they
Hmm.
know the importance of exercise and training the lungs. So I feel like, you know, I've had a head start on that as a youngster, which has helped me now.
And it's amazing, like when you're saying that, because like I watched your last fight on YouTube, and like your gas tank's unbelievable. Like, so they think that you've kind of grew up with, like, you know, being told like exercise can't be good for you, but then you're the kind of poster boy for that not being quite true when you see, you know, the kind of dangerous waters that you can get in MMA fights and still have that ability to kind of muscle out of something or get back in your feet. You know, it was quite incredible to watch, and knowing, like, obviously I had done a bit of research on you beforehand, so knowing what I know about you, it made that fight even better to watch as such, eh?
Yeah, I feel like growing up as a kid, I would almost use like sport and fitness to like compare myself to other people, almost like make me feel like I was healthy. So like if I was covering the most ground on the football pitch, I was like, oh, my lungs are just as good as theirs. And like I remember like going to secondary school and being put in the disabled group for PE on the start, and I was like, you know, what's going on? Like, why is this? And I remember I had to like go home, tell my parents, and they'd be like, "Oh, we'll ring school tomorrow and see if we can get you in." And they were like, "We're doing testing tomorrow, and we're doing like the bleep test and the 12-minute Cooper's run, so we'll put him in that, and then bases the group we put him in off that." And I remember the next day I went and won both those tests,
Right.
and I was, yeah, see, I'm healthy, so you know, I'd always like try and get the records for the 1500 meters in my high school and run the cross country. And I'd almost like, and me doing that, I'd be like, oh, see, my lungs are good.
Yeah.
So I'm healthy. Uh, so then just growing up, that always like stayed with me. And it was something I always wanted to like keep putting into it. So it's the same with my fights. I want to make sure I'm like pushing the pace, I'm moving forward. I've got a really good gas tank. I want to be in the gym working the hardest for the longest and just carrying that on because I almost feel like when I start to decline, maybe physically, I'll be like, oh, maybe something's getting on top of me or CS getting on top of me here. So I'm just going to try and stop that from happening for as long as possible and be by having endurance almost. And it makes me almost feel like I'm healthy, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. And see that mindset that you had even as a kid. I mean, is that something that came from your parents, or was that just like you as your own wee person? You know, was that, or was that kind of like always? Were your parents dead supportive of like you just trying to be out there as normal as you could be and live that normal life as you could?
I feel like me comparing how fit I was to my friends to make me feel healthy came from me. However, I was fortunate that when I grew up, my parents like treated me just as a normal kid. They like told me a story about when I got diagnosed a couple of weeks after birth that they were taken into a room and the doctor said, "Do you know what cystic fibrosis is?" And they were like, "No." And they were like, "Go away, read this booklet, and we'll book you in for an appointment." And they said that in the booklet it was like life expectancy 16, won't get a pension, won't get married, won't have kids, be in and out of hospital, won't be able to exercise. And they said when they got home, they were upset at the time, and they said my dad just ripped up the leaflet, chucked it in the bin, and goes, "This isn't going to be his life." And so, like growing up, I thought I was normal. Like as
Yeah,
a kid, primary school, it was almost when I got to secondary school, I started realizing more. I used to think like all my friends that had to take tablets, all my friends had to go to the hospital every like 4 weeks and step on the scales and do a lung function test. They were like chucking me in. Like my dad played rugby for sale at the time, so they were like chucking me in every sport going. Uh, so I just honestly thought I was the same. It was as you get older and more wiser and went to secondary school, started to learn that I was a bit different. But I was fortunate how my parents brought me up definitely, and even like the movies they would make me watch would be like Karate Kid, Rocky, Mighty Duck,
yeah.
all the underdog stories and everything. So I had a good environment growing up as a kid for sure.
Yeah, and your dad being like playing for sale and things like that, like they're hardly men as rugby players as well. So you know you're not going to get anything less than that. Right, come on, out you go and do it. You know.
Oh, that's what I mean. And like he'd be taking me to football, to rugby, to athletics. Even tried me hand at roller hockey and stuff. Just like pushing me into stuff and doing stuff. And like I was going from the to the gym lifting weights from like the age of 13 with him and stuff. So you know it was great to have those people around me push me almost like because it could have gone two ways. They could have wrapped me up in cotton wool
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be where and who I am today. Or they could have just thrown me out there like they did do. And I feel like I was fortunate that, and like the friends and the my friends' parents growing up, it was never like, oh, Aaron can't come for a sleepover because he's got to have like 40 tablets. They'd almost make me feel normal and stuff. So yeah, I'm thankful for that.
yeah. No, that's excellent as well, eh? So see when you were diagnosed with testicular cancer, did the doctors kind of like was there anything that was going to be unexpected in terms of your treatment because of um, your cystic fibrosis? Was there going to be anything that going forward that might have made that worse, or was there medications they couldn't use? You know, was there anything like that that you came across?
The chemotherapy is obviously bad for your lungs.
Hmm.
Uh, so that was a big worry, and I would have to. I think my appointment was every Thursday, and every Thursday I go to the hospital with my uncle and my dad, and they give you that form you sign for the chemotherapy, and when you read the side effects on there, every time I read about the lung function
Hmm.
and the damages to the lungs, I wouldn't sign it, and I'd be like, I need more time.
Right.
So I go away, I go back the week after, and I be like, right, I'm going to start, and then I'd read that, and I wouldn't sign it, and I'd go away, and this went on for a few months because every time I'd read it, I'd be like, I've spent my whole life looking after my lungs
Hmm.
to now almost ruin them. That's what I was thinking. And my nana just had cancer, and she just lost her life to cancer, and I just seen what the chemotherapy did to her. So this went on, and I remember one day I went training, and I come home and I was eating in the garden with my mum because it was sunny, and I had my top off, and I was lying down after I had that, and I just seen this big lump coming out my stomach, and I was like, "Oh, that's not good." And my mum was like, started like I could see her like tearing up in her face.
Yeah.
And anyway, my dad took me to the hospital again. They had a scan, and it was the lymph mass growing in the stomach. And then the next day, my CF nurse come to see me jam. And this is when I talk about like the mindsets of it, of like me going through different ones throughout the time and stuff. And she come to see me and she said, Aaron, like, you got two options. You come into the end, so we can give you like end of life care and make it as pain free as possible, or we can go for the chemotherapy, fight it and as hard as we can, and take what comes at us. They're your two options because you're running out of time. And I remember I said to her, "This is one of those times where you don't know if you're going to win. You don't know how the fight's going, but you're just going to bite down on your gum shield and move forward and try and take everything that hits you."
Mm.
So the next day, went to the hospital, started the chemotherapy, and that was like the mindset of almost hoping I would be okay, but knowing that I was just fighting.
Yeah.
And particularly because of the chemotherapy and the damage to the lungs. So I started on the first lot, which was 5 days on, 2 weeks, 2 days off, which was 20 hours of chemo, 4 hours off. I started on that. I had the first four lots of that, and then I was waiting for an operation. And during that time, the cancer come back, and my blood markers started going back up again. So I had to go on another lot of chemotherapy, which was worse. And during the second lot, after I had the second lot of it, they said any more, and his lungs will go.
Right. Wow.
My lung function had dropped to like 30%. I was struggling to like get upstairs. So they're like, we need to get him in for an operation ASAP. And there was only one doctor one surgeon, sorry, in the UK that would do it. So I was on the waiting list for this one doctor, this one surgeon, hoping the cancer wouldn't come back. And then during this time, I was like, right, I'm going to go on the rower and I'm going to try and get myself as fit as possible and get my lung function back up. And my lung function, I managed to get it up to 70%.
Oh, really? Wow.
By the time I had the operation, and that operation was then just life or death. What of the outcome of that? And fortunately, it went well. I managed to come out the other end of it and be where I am now.
How you said that was quite a long operation? How long were you in, like on the table for?
So to be fair, they planned, I think, for a 12-hour operation.
Oof.
But I was in and out after 4 hours.
Oh, really? Wow.
So what had happened was, however, before I went in, they'd said to like my parents about like writing my will, and they said, "This is the plan. We're going to have like because of all the complications, we're going to have the lung function team there. We're going to have this team there. We're going to have the heart surgeons there because where the mass was in my stomach, it's where blood goes to and from the heart. So if they were to touch that, it would have been game over anyway." But he also said, you might not be in there long because I might open you up and see the cancers spread more, and then that'll be it.
Right.
So after those 4 hours, I remember I come out and they said everything that went right went right. They said it was perfect. So I was like, oh, awesome. And obviously being under a lot of drugs, just thinking, right, I'm going back to sleep now. And I remember waking up like 3 days later or something, and I had pneumonia.
Oh.
I couldn't breathe, and I was on the oxygen, and I was like, what has happened in 3 days? But fortunately enough, I was in Birmingham at that time, and I'd have my family staying with me, looking after me and everything, and Haley and my dad, they were like, we need to get him back to his cystic fibrosis team because it was a lung function problem now.
Mm-hmm.
So they transferred me from Birmingham Hospital back to Liverpool to my team there, and within 2 weeks, I think it was less than that, I was back home, back in the gym, starting the journey for recovery.
Yeah, which is quite incredible. Like, and again, just testament to your mindset going through that. Because I mean, one at 26, having to be kind of that life and death thing, literal like choice. You know, it's like you can either get the chemo, or you could end up on end of life care. That must have scared the absolute life out of you. But then to kind of make that decision, go through that, and then be back training and things like that, like. I think you going on the rower, even after all that, just shows an incredible steeliness that's not common in people, and I think it just shows, if you do have that mentality, and even guys who maybe can't do the rower, but go out and walk, and just make sure your lungs are healthy going through this treatment, even for guys who don't have CF, like the impact in your lungs can still be quite significant. So it just shows like looking after yourself really is a massive help, eh?
Yeah, definitely, and I feel like mindset is a big thing, and like I said earlier, like life's tough, and you don't always know if you're going to be okay. But I feel like I've always like grown up and almost like learned lessons from playing football at a high level as a kid as well, like on how to carry yourself. And I remember like one coach used to say to me, "You look like a pro, you'll play like a pro." So I'd always make sure I'd try and look as healthy as possible, and I'd be like, "Right, what's in my control?" The
Yeah.
operation was in my control, but what can I do to get myself as healthy as possible for it? So I would be like, because my weight went down to 49 kilogram, I'd be like, right, need to gain some weight. What's going to make me fit quick? I can't do martial arts because the state of my body in. I can get on the rower. Boom, I'll go on the rower. I'll do what I can, because I always feel like it's even with a fight, you don't know if you're going to go in, win or lose, but you can control how you prepare, and you can give it your all when you're in there. So I'll be like, that's the same with this situation. I can give it my all. I can control how I prepare, and then what will be will be. So again, it was just like pulling on little things like that, and there was mornings where just like it was hard because it's for me it was lonely as well. I'd gone from being in the gym every day, twice a day with people I loved, pursuing my passion and my purpose, to struggling to get out the house when everyone was working.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be days where I'd just be in a dark room, like staring at the wall, like asking God for help, trying to meditate, or just being upset. And then I'd be like, right, I'm going to find some hope. Whether the hope was I'm going to get back fighting, I'm going to become a world champion, or I ended up getting a dog,
Mm-hmm.
Lenny, and then he became my purpose. So when I woke up in the morning, it wasn't about what was happening. It was about, where am I taking Lenny? What are we doing today? and that really helped me at the time, because it for me, that like one of the toughest things was being alone when you're used to just being around people all the time. Training, pursuit, like my purpose had almost gone
Mm.
from that. So again, like I didn't know if I was going to be okay. It still was tough, but I had a bit of hope,
Yeah.
and then hope would push me to that next level to go again, and then getting Lenny would help give me again a bit of hope and something that I weren't focusing on me. I was looking after him. Just little things like that I could pull on throughout the whole journey to come to the other side of it.
I think as well, like, see when you've got a dog, like I've got a dog as well, and I think, like, see when you wake up in the morning and they're just so happy to see you, and if you're feeling like that, and then you instantly see this wee thing that just loves you unconditionally, and then you're like, right, okay, you need fed, you need walked, and it does take your mind off a lot of like any kind of the emotional or mental struggles that you're having. So
I,
yeah, I
I
totally get it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and I don't think if if you haven't had a dog, it's hard to understand. But like it was just mad. Sometimes I had no hair at the time, and like I'd maybe walk him in the morning, and I was going through like some chemo, and that was tough. And then I get home, and then like my mum would get home from work, and she'd send me a picture, and he'd be sleeping on me bald head.
Oh, really?
Uh, just like stuff like that we'd
uh,
laugh about, and just things like that, and it did make a big difference.
Yeah, it did for me. Like with the dog that I have now isn't the dog that I had when I was going through treatment. We had our dog Lewis, who was a black cocker, and he was like a sturdy dog. And even though he was a kind of medium sized dog, and if he jumped on you, you felt it. But I remember that first day coming down from after the operation and coming down to sit on the couch, and Lewis jumped up on the couch with me, and you know that way, like it was almost like he sensed there was something wrong because he was
Yeah,
so gentle and so just there for you.
yeah,
And I think yeah, if you've not had a dog and you don't experience something like that, it's something you should do.
yeah.
But
No, completely agree. Like we call him Lucky Lenny now, because I feel like when he come, like things started going into uh, more positive for me.
yeah,
Uh, they like started turning, but it was a mad journey. I remember even one day, so like waiting for the operation in that time, after I couldn't have any more chemo, I got a phone call from the hospital saying my bloods had come back and the cancer had come back. And I remember like me and my mum just like lying on the kitchen floor, like crying. And anyway, like 4 hours later, I got a phone call. They give me the wrong results.
oh jeez.
Yeah, and like I laugh at it now, but I remember like what has just happened. The woman had misread the dot in it, and they were fine.
Wow,
And I was
what
like,
an
just
emotional roller coaster that must have been. Jeez.
like, what I was like so happy, but then I was like, what has she just put us through?
Uh,
Uh, so
well, at least you had that bonding moment with your mum. You know what I mean?
just stuff like that, and because it was just a mad journey.
Honestly, mate, it's quite incredible. Like, so, like, see, just kind of pulling it back a little bit. You obviously, like, before you went in for treatment, was it you're kind of on a win streak as well? Like, you'd won kind of like 3 back to back before your cancer diagnosis, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was. It was like talk. I was on a big show at the time called ACB, now ACA. So it was like fighting in the big arenas. And I was talking the UFC coming, and then obviously this happened, which set me back at the time uh, of where I was. So it again, like there's never a good time to have cancer, but in
Yeah.
terms of my career as well, it was a bad timing for that.
And see that first fight back after your surgery, after your chemo, getting that fitness back. You know, what was that camp like for you? Like, knowing that you were preparing both physically and mentally for that fight after, you know, the possibility of essentially death, you know, like 2 years previous?
For me, I wasn't cured until I fought again.
Right.
So in my head, I almost had cancer still,
Mm-hmm.
because I would like say, I remember like I'd say to people, I don't want to just survive this. Like I want to get back to where I was before. So like going through that camp was almost me like proving, like I said earlier, that I was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Was like me proving I was normal again. And in hindsight, it was probably too soon. I was way under the weight. My opponent missed weight, and I still fought him.
Right.
I remember like having like trying to bulk up for the weight, and it was. But I wanted it so bad because I just wanted to be back normal. I think for me it was easier than it was for my team. I remember my dad told me like after the fight that my coach rung him and said like, "Can I like punch him in the stomach?" And uh, my dad was like, you better fucking punch him, because if you don't punch him, what's going to happen if he gets punched in the fight?" So I think it was harder for them than it was for me. But that moment and making comeback was probably the most proudest moment for me and the people around me to get back and do that. And they're those bits of hope that I talk about sometimes get you through it, because I always hoped I'd come back.
Yeah.
Did I know? I thought I would, but I didn't totally know. Uh, and having that hope that I would come back maybe helped push me a little bit more. Maybe help me keep fighting that one extra day. And being able to do that, was one of the goals I set. 10 fights was another goal I set after that, and I've done that one. There's a couple more to tick off. Hopefully that will get done, but I've always aimed for the stars, and if I might not reach them, I might land on the moon. So we'll see how we go. But I've still got a few things to tick off yet.
Oh no, that's amazing, and it's genuinely like so inspirational. And again, the point of this podcast, and I say this, you know, on most times that we kind of talk about it, is that, you know, guys who are just found out they've had it, or going through it, or have had it, and are maybe struggling with something, can come across any of these episodes and take something away from it. And I think certainly, like, listening to your story and everything that sorry, that you overcame, you know, and what you managed to do, hopefully that kind of continues to inspire those guys that are going to see this, and not just even the guys seeing it, you know, their family members around, you know, able to kind of say that, you know, there is hope, there is inspiration there. Like, here's these stories. I think looking ahead. Sorry, there you go.
I think it's great what you're doing with this, because I always think about. I just wanted someone to speak to sometimes, and I was trying to find someone with CF who had gone through it, just so I could talk to them and say, "What was the chemo like?"
Yeah.
But like I couldn't find anyone. So I feel like you doing stuff like this, where someone may be going through that journey, or is just gonna be able to come listen to this and listen to the episodes you do, and be able to relate people and maybe pick something up, and it might be that bit of hope they need.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, and hats off to you. I do think you're gonna have a big impact on people as well.
No, that means a lot, mate, honestly. And again, I hope that that's the case, you know, especially when, you know, you have people who do have maybe dual diagnoses, like having CF, and then getting that testicular cancer and looking at that same form and going, I don't know if I want to tick this. And hopefully, you know, like they see as the SEO of this will come up and they'll be able to watch it and see your story around that as well. You know, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's
No.
it's great what you're doing, mate.
Cheers, man. And so looking ahead, what's your goals and aspirations for your MMA career and personal life for this kind of next couple of years? Is a kind of a championship fight in the cards for you coming up?
There's news coming very soon. I don't know when this podcast will go live, but I'm hoping it'll be within the next few days. And you know that'll be a big one, which I'm looking forward to. And then for me, like fighting career wise, I'm gonna go as long as I can at the best level I can, and then after that, I'm pretty fortunate that I've been in coaching. You know, I've been coaching MMA since I was like 18 now, and I've got a gym full of good up and coming fighters and experienced fighters as well. So I'll go into coaching full time after my journey is as a professional has ended, and just keep doing that. And again, you know, it's life, innit? We'll see what happens and where it takes me. But for me, I just need that purpose, and a purpose that I'm passionate about is something that like I think is important.
Yeah. Thanks again, Aaron, for coming on and, and telling your story and being so candid with it as well. And I look forward to seeing your kind of your upcoming bouts as well, mate. You've got a fan in me now, brother. So I'll be keeping an eye on your career for sure. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. And like I said, I appreciate what you're doing, and it's really good, mate.
Yeah, worries. You take care.